Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Salmon.
Oh, thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. For those of y'all who know me, thank you so much. For those who don't, I want to get this off the table right up front. I look racist. I know that. I'm not, but I understand it's how my head's shaped. Think about it. If I had come up here and the first thing I said was, I love black people, everybody in here would be like, this feels weirdly uncomfortable when you say that. My friends tell me, they're like, Jason, just shave. Then you won't look racist. That's not true at all. It's not. I will still look racist. I just won't look ignorant anymore. Which is way worse. I think it's better to look like you're headed to a rally than to look like you organized the rally. And I just have one real quick favor to ask of all you normal-looking white people. Can you just not do racist stuff, please? Don't, because guess who gets asked about it first? Yeah, and probably you occasionally, maybe, you know? Yeah. And I've spent all my time explaining how I'm not racist. And you know what sounds terrible coming out of this face? The phrase, I'm not racist. Yeah, because most people think I'm only halfway done with that sentence. But I look like this because I'm from Texas. That's what this is. This is what hours inside a football helmet under extreme heat will do to the human head. I actually grew this facial hair for my parents, so they would know that if need be, I could work the land. But I do understand that I look like the enemy. I do, not just racially. I look like every enemy. Whatever your cause is, I look like the picture on your poster board with the red line through it. I understand that. I can't wear a sweater vest and walk past a playground on the same day. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't like watching the news anymore because when they introduce a new villain, there's a 1 in 3 shot. He looks like me. That's not... I found out this year I look like a Russian arms dealer. That was a bad news day for me. And the Me Too movement happened, or since I'm a guy, the You Maybe movement. And I had to look back on my relationships. I had to think, was I sensitive to their needs? Did I communicate well? I know I wasn't equipped. Because I learned about the birds and the bees from my dad, who is not what I would consider a nuanced thinker when it comes to human intimacy. My dad grew up around cattle. There weren't a lot of times we discussed women where he didn't use the word haunches. For those of y'all who don't know what haunches are, that is the fleshy part around the hindquarter, all right? And for those of y'all who don't know how women work, do not ever use the terms fleshy, hindquarter, or haunches. If you ever want one to follow you home, it's not gonna happen. I realize I learned about electricity before I learned the birds and the bees, and I'm pretty sure that's the wrong order. I am. I mean, it makes sense. At first, you got the male component, the plug, right? And the female component, the outlet. But after that, it goes off the rails. I mean, that plug's got 2 prongs. That's double what I'm bringing to the table already. And those outlets, when I was growing up, they all looked exactly the same, and they behaved exactly the same. And all you ever had to do is plug that thing in, and everything turns on. And that is not how that works at all. If those outlets were more accurately feminine, they would have buttons and toggle switches and knobs that you just have to find. And some you push, and some you stroke, and some you just whisper to. Sometimes you just gotta sit by the outlet and talk to it for a while, see how its day's going. Every once in a while, you're gonna plug that thing in, the light's gonna pretend to turn on, and you gotta roll with it. Yeah, I'm not saying I know how parents should talk to their kids about this stuff. I don't. I'm just saying maybe do it before you teach them to install a ceiling fan. That's probably a better move. But don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I love my life. I love that I live in New York City, being from Texas, because every time somebody finds out, I get a reaction immediately. Something like clear eyes, full hearts. That's fun. That's a fun one, right? It's gotten a little weirder of late. Somebody hears I'm from Texas, they'll be like, blessed be the fruit. I don't know how to exactly. I'm like, all right, that's fair, I get it. Because people think Texans are as mean as our politicians. They do, and we're not. We do like to go to Cancun in the winter. That part's true. But most Texans I know are kind, sweet, empathetic people. I'm very empathetic. I am. My pronouns are you and y'all. I mean, come on. But I do love that I grew up in Texas. I've spent most of my professional life in New York City because those are the two places in America that most tie their identity to their geography. People from Texas love to tell you about that. Makes them feel tough. People from New York City love to tell you that. Makes them feel smart. And I've lived in both places, and I can tell you that neither one of those is accurate at all. I know a lot of dumb New Yorkers and a lot of Texans who are afraid of chihuahuas. Or as my friends in Texas pronounce it, chihuahuas. Yeah, because that's a Spanish word. And in Texas, we refuse to speak any language other than English. And that includes proper English, which we consider technically British. But I am glad that I grew up that way. I am, and I think I'm fortunate to have grown up Generation X, too. We got any Gen Xers in here? Yeah, I don't even care. That's how Gen X I am. That's a calling card of our generation, right? It's not even dismissive to a Gen Xer. It's like, I don't care. I don't care also. Nice to meet you. What generation are you? It doesn't matter. I don't care. That's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing. If y'all don't like this joke, guess what? You're only going to give me more cred as a Gen Xer. You'll only make me more powerful. But we are a lucky generation. We're the only generation currently alive that didn't spend our youth with America at war. Think about that. Boomers had Vietnam. Millennials, everybody after. Afghanistan. We had this long stretch of relative peace. I mean, George Bush sent a few guys to Kuwait for like a long weekend. It's like, all right, was that a war? Not by American standards. That was not a war. Felt like more of an excursion, to be honest. By the way, we had the best George Bush, Generation X. We had the George Bush that wore glasses and had exit strategies. That was a better model of George Bush. In Gen X, we call that George Bush Classic. But it's easy to spot that we're a lucky generation because we're sandwiched between the two most dynamically angry generations currently alive. We are. Boomers and millennials hate each other. They do. I hear it all the time. It's like, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. I'm like, hey, you're both right. Chill out. Chill out. But I get it. I get why they're two angry generations, because these are two generations that experience these huge swings between human achievement and human disappointment, right? Boomers established civil rights, fair housing, but in order to get there were assassinations, race riots, KKK. Millennials elected the first black president in American history, and then they elected the next president who brought back race riots in the KKK. I mean, it's just this full circle. And then in the middle, Gen X, we just watched Soul Train and listened to hip hop and fell in love with Oprah and all the Michaels. It was a great generation for Michaels in America. We had Tyson, Jordan, Jackson. Generation X had the best Michael Jackson. We had Moonwalk Michael Jackson. That is the greatest Michael Jackson ever. Boomers, you had little Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, cute, talented, but nowhere near Thriller level Michael Jackson. Millennials, y'all had documentary Michael Jackson. No. That is a confusing applause point, I gotta be honest with you. But that's the thing, millennials had the worst of a lot of things. They did. Millennials introduced ghosting to the world as a way to end a relationship. In Gen X, ghosting just meant that Demi Moore's boyfriend had to die to become remotely interested in her pottery hobby. And I hear people criticize millennials for being the participation trophy generation, but I have to remind them this is a generation that grew up in the shadow of 9/11. They graduate college at the '08 financial crash. They finally climb out of their parents' basement, and the whole world just shuts down for 2 years. They experience a lifetime flood or fire or recession almost every year. If that's what they've got to participate in, give them a trophy. Just give them a trophy. I'm glad some of them are still participating, to be honest with you. Because I think the key to understanding a generation is you got to understand the world that they grew up in. People say millennials are self-involved. We're all self-involved. It's just that millennials learn to embrace it, and that's disturbing to the rest of us. I understand that. But it's not a character flaw. It's a product of their environment. Think about it. Millennials grew up with GPS. Every time they went on a journey, sitting next to them with this robot navigation butler just whispering precise step-by-step instructions in the soothing voice of their choosing. And then when they look at the map, it's telling them that they are the center of the universe. No matter how far they go or which direction they're headed, they're just this bright blue orb of hope that the entire world just arranges itself around. That's gonna mess with your sense of self, it is. And of course it's gonna irritate boomers because every time they went on a trip, the thing giving them directions was a disappointed spouse or parent. And not in the voice of their choosing, but in the voice they hated most in the whole world. That's why boomers will never be fully comfortable around a GPS. It's just too nice. Have you ever been in the car with a boomer and a GPS at the same time? It is a fight to the death. That is navigational Highlander in that car. I'll be driving down the road with my mom and that GPS is like turn right and 1,000 feet and my mom's like, don't you do it, don't you dare turn right. I'm like, Mom, I love you, but I'm gonna go with the thing that can see traffic from the sky today. That's how we're doing this journey. But I understand her perspective too, as a boomer, because when boomers went on trips, they had to know things. They had to have skills. They had to start preparing the night before by unfolding a map that was sometimes the size of their house. And the first thing they had to do was figure out where they even were on the map. Think about that. If every time you went on a trip, your first step was to find yourself, do you realize the level of existential stability that requires? That's why every time a boomer reaches their destination, their first 10 minutes of conversation is just, how did you get here? But I grew up Generation X, one foot in both worlds. I knew technology was great, but also stupid, because I had MapQuest. Yeah, I had to start preparing the night before too, but just by printing out 28 pages. And the first 17 of them were just to get off the street that I lived on. That's stupid. That's stupid. But I understand. I understand. Generation X, we were in that sweet spot in American history. After the boomers had taught us to just say no, but before millennials had taught us that no meant no. So we were having a good time. We were. Because millennials know so many things, and they care about so many things. And boomers, you know like 10 things. And you only care about 4 of them. And Gen X, I grew up going to schools filled with lead paint and asbestos, and I thought the things I should fear most were Y2K and quicksand. So I feel like all of that was a lie. Because it's about your access to information. These are 3 generations that are defined by that access to information. Boomers, 3 channels, that's not nearly enough information. Somebody's gonna gaslight you. Millennials, YouTube, that's way too much information. You're gonna gaslight yourself. Generation X was a generation that realized that 200 channels is the perfect amount of information for the human brain to process without imploding on itself. Yeah, we had a big bird and a crime dog and a bear that was trying to pin the blame for forest fires on us. Our guns had roses. Our bologna had a first name. It was a nice era of information. It was. And that's why we understand that millennials and boomers will never fully be able to connect with each other. They won't. These are two vastly different generations. Boomers experience Spider-Man only as a comic book, and millennials think that his superpower is that every time he takes off his mask, he's a different actor. That's too big of a chasm. It is. So I feel like it's my job to translate between the generations. I have those conversations. I talk to my dad about gender. Yeah, this is a thing that his whole life was a true-false question, and I had to tell him, no, it's an essay now. This is a man who gave up on technology when DVDs came out, okay? He is not ready for this conversation all by himself. To tell him that gender is on a spectrum, he grew up watching black and white television. He didn't even realize color was on a spectrum till he was in college. Now I gotta tell him there's a lot of things on the spectrum. Gender, most of my friends in comedy, it's a wild world out there. It really is. His favorite athlete, Bruce Jenner. Yeah. I had to sit my father down and explain Bruce Jenner no longer exists. He's like, Bruce Jenner's dead? I'm like, no, way more complicated, way more complicated. But he asked questions. He asked questions, and I credit him for that. He did. Some of them were easy. It's like, how do you spell Caitlin? I'm like, don't worry about it. I don't think anybody knows how to spell Caitlin, to be honest. But he asked me about gender reassignment surgery, and that is a much harder question. It is, and I can't possibly understand fully the plight of a transgender person in America. But I did grow up Generation X with the gender fluid music of Boy George, David Bowie, Prince. So I might not understand what you're saying, but I'm still gonna listen because I'm not missing the next Purple Rain. I swear, I'm not. So I tried to explain it in terms he would understand. He's like, what's gender reassignment surgery? I'm like, it's sort of like Uncle Andy. Uncle Andy had gastric bypass surgery. A transgender person looks in the mirror. They're like, I don't feel like the person I see in the mirror. And one day Uncle Andy looked in the mirror. He's like, I don't feel like a heavy person. I feel like a slender person. And then he went and had surgery, and he became a slender person. It's basically gender reassignment, Dad. It's basically... Uncle Andy's essentially transgender, but with cellulite. Now, was that an oversimplification? Yes, of course it was. But it taught him what he needed to know about the subject. Because now when he hears the term transgender, he doesn't get angry about some random public restroom somewhere in America. He thinks about the time he went fishing with Uncle Andy. He's like, I don't know, I'm okay with it, whatever. I mean, it did get weird the first time he saw Uncle Andy after that, because I think he conflated both of those things into one thing. He just walks up, he hugs him, he's like, you can use whatever bathroom you want while you're here. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how all the bathrooms work in our house anyway, Dad. I think he called his shirt a blouse a few times. He may have used the term trans-slender, I can't remember. But the fact is, he was trying to understand a world that he didn't come from, and I respect that, and I've tried to emulate that as best I can. Because sometimes the things you figure out when you go into those worlds is that those are the things you like the most. You know what I love to do right now? Get pedicures. I did not see that coming in my life. I didn't. How many guys in here get pedicures? Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you right now, if you're a man who came here with a woman, she wishes you would. She does. I only say that because every pedicure I've ever gotten has been an ultimatum. It's been some version of some woman going, you are not coming in here. Well, it looks like you could shimmy up a telephone pole with those feet. Now, I was flattered she got all the way to my feet before it was a no-go. I was. I've seen a lot of guys in my time. Most of them somewhere between the forehead and their navel. It's a definite deal breaker. She got to my feet before she nixed it. That's a win in my book. It is. And men, you should listen to women when they tell you about your feet, because women know how to judge feet. Women judge their feet by looking at the feet of other women. Beautiful women, celebrities, models. Men, we judge our feet by looking at the feet of furniture, I think. I don't know how else we reach the conclusions we do. It's like we look down, we're like, well, it's mobile, and when I slide across the floor, nothing scratches. That's a solid foot, right? No. That's a foot that needs help. And I knew I needed help. I did. And I knew I couldn't do it myself, because I can't hold my leg like that for any length of time at all. I will spasm. And it's not a young person spasm either, you know, where you kick 3 times and everything's okay. No. It's an old person spasm, where you kick 3 times and then you just suddenly can't turn your head to the right for the next week and a half. You're like, I don't know what I just did to my body, but I'll never be the same again. And I don't understand how toenails work, because toenails do not obey the laws of physics and gravity that I was taught in school. Nobody clips a toenail and it falls directly to the earth like Newton said it would. No. Clip a toenail, just flies off into the world like a toe falcon. I don't know what's going on there. It's like I opened a door and it had a to-do list. It's like, where is it? I don't know. I assume it's with friends. I don't know how to process this right now. It was yearning to be free. I feel like I should be a little happy. I don't know what to feel. I never know exactly what to think until my girlfriend gets home and she's like, why is there a toenail in my toothbrush? Yeah, you should groan, because I was not in the bathroom when I clipped that thing, all right? Yeah, that means that toenail turned a corner. That should terrify you as a sentient human. And that's when I knew I needed professional help. I did. So I went to my first nail salon, Upper West Side of Manhattan. I walked in there, and it was weird. It was. Not just for me, for everybody. Because I walk in there in my trucker hat, my sleeveless shirt, and those women are like, something is about to go terribly wrong. Which felt judgy. It felt judgy. Until I caught my reflection in the mirror. I'm like, I see what you see. All right, okay. Yeah, because I don't look like a dude who gets his feet done at a nail place. I don't. I look like a dude who's injured his feet with a nail gun. I get that. And you could tell they were perplexed, too, because they said, may I help you? But it wasn't a customer service, may I help you? You know, like, you came here. How can I help you get the thing you came here for? There was more defensive, may I help you? Like, you came here. Where did you think you were going? You smelled polish. You thought it was paint. The hardware store's across the street. We'll walk you over there as a team. They were perplexed. I was perplexed. It was a standstill. So I just said what the woman in front of me said. I said, don't cut the cuticles. It worked for her, so I tried it. I gotta be honest, I don't know what cuticles are. Sounds like a Frozen treat for kids. It's like, Jenny's hungry. We'll get her a cuticle. Dinner's in an hour. She'll be fine. But I said it, and they just pointed me to a chair like I'd unlocked some sort of secret password at the nail salon. It was great. And it was an amazing experience. It was, in part because I found out I am ticklish in my feet. I did. I'm just sitting there laughing and giggling, and that woman's down there just sawing and chopping and scraping. Like a craftsman trying to fashion a decent chair out of a tree she found in the swamp, you know? And then in the middle of it, they just give you a free leg massage. Did you know this? They give you a free leg massage. Why are more businesses not incorporating this? If my dentist gave free leg massages, I would have impeccable oral health right now. And also, if it's your first time, it's not only a free leg massage, it is a surprise leg massage. Woman working with me did not tell me it was coming. She just held up a box with 5 minutes on it, hit a button, and started a countdown, and that was unsettling. It was. I'm not sure how you should announce a free leg massage, just maybe not the same way you would end a 007 movie. That just felt wrong. But it was great. They're down there just laughing and giggling and speaking Korean to each other, and I'm up there laughing and giggling and enjoying my sensual leg journey. And the 3 women beside me are terrified because they think that those women are talking about them and that I understand what they're saying. Yeah, it was real weird. And I don't even care if they're talking about me because I walked in there fully aware that my feet are an abomination to God and nature. If you're not mocking in or criticizing my feet, I don't even know if I could trust you as a nail technician, to be honest. they're laughing and giggling, and I'm laughing and giggling, and at one point I just locked eyes with my nail tech. I'm like, right? And that's when everything stopped. Because suddenly, they thought I knew what they were talking about. It got real weird. It got real weird. But I think it made me a better man. I really do. Because I walked in that nail salon, just a simple country boy who didn't understand how feet worked. And I walked out of there, an international man of espionage who understands fluent Korean. That was a solid upgrade to my resume. It really was. Look, I continue to get pedicures. I do. I do it for my girlfriend. It's the least I can do. She's helped me in so many ways. She helped me understand that women, y'all think about things in complex and layered and connected ways. And you'll see a guy you're interested in, you'll be like, I bet he's got that in there somewhere. He does not. He does not. On the flip side, guys, you'll see a woman you're interested in, you're like, I bet she wants a massage. No, also no, don't do that. That's how hashtags were invented. Don't become one. But I think we're lucky. I really do, because we understand. You know, she and I do. Not each other at all. But we understand that we may never understand each other, and I think that's a good first step. It is. We understand that the key to true happiness in a relationship is just two completely separate definitions of the word happiness. You know, you do what you love, I'll do what I love, we'll meet later and watch some TV, because that's what we're best at. Because we're past the Netflix and chill portion of our relationship. We're at the Netflix and see who falls asleep first portion of our relationship. And she tells me, she's like, I worry that I'm boring. And I'm like, why would you worry about that? I mean, you are boring. That's true. But that's what I want. That's what I want. The fact that I don't have health care is all the excitement I need in my life right now. Because when you're young, excitement's like riding a roller coaster. You get older, excitement's like riding a roller coaster with sciatica. It's a different story. We'll walk through the park together. We'll see that young couple making out on the park bench. We're not inspired by that. That's not relationship goals for us. We look at that couple, we're like, one of them's probably going to stab the other one at some point. That's just way too much outdoor passion. Doesn't feel healthy. We look over at the other bench with the old couple, arms wrapped around each other, just exfoliating one another like animals. We're like, that's us. That's who we want to be right there. Because when you get down to it, that's what it is. You're just two animals trying to take care of each other for as long as you can. That's what relationships end up being, and it's nice. It is. I know that I will rarely have a conversation with her where she doesn't lose eye contact completely and just start focusing on something wrong with my face. She's like, what's going on? What's going on? Because she thinks that's part of her job in our relationship, to just never let me leave the house looking like I don't live in a house. And I know that sometimes being with her is going to be like being with a possessive chihuahua. It is. I'm going to see those eyes widen and the teeth snarl. You know, like that. I'm like, look, I know she can't hurt me, but this is going to be a lot of work. It is. But it's good. It's good. I like that we're at that point in our relationship. And look, she is the clean one, the neat one, the organized one. That's great. It manifests weirdly occasionally. Like, this is the first time I've ever been in a place where some of the trash cans are decorative. That's a weird discovery to make. It is. You just throw trash in a trash can, you hear a voice behind you go, take that out. I'm like, first of all, what are you doing behind me? That's creepy. That's creepy. Second of all, that's trash, right? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's a trash can, right? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I feel like this conversation should be over. It's not? It's not. Okay, it's not. And that's the thing. We think about things way differently. We do. If you ask her what she wants, she'll tell you, I want something that helps me grow and evolve and become better every single day, but still allows me to be the person I've always been. And I'm like, what? Did we even go anywhere in that sentence? I don't know what just happened. You ask me what I want, 9 times out of 10, it's like tacos. I want tacos. Is that possible? Can you do that, please? And I want to understand her. One day she came home, we sat down on the couch. I'm like, I want you to tell me what's going on in your life. And she started to tell me the story. And I'm like, I'm out. I can't. I wanted to. Turns out I'm not equipped. I'm not. Because I tell stories for a living. And when she starts a story, it hasn't been fully formed in her head yet. So there's all sorts of loose threads and unresolved plot lines. Last story she told me, she brought up Jamie from work. Then Jamie just never made it back in the resolution. At the end of the story, I'm like, what happened to Jamie? She's like, who's Jamie? I'm like, clearly a plot device, I guess. I don't know why you're using literary tricks. That seems unfair. But we try to understand each other, try to get along. That's what you really want to do, right? In your relationships. And you think it's going to be easy. You think it's going to be like communicating with a peer. But I got to be honest with you. If men and women didn't fit together physically, I think we might be mortal enemies in nature. We might. So you got to figure out ways to translate it in a relationship. This is what I've found out. Man, if you're trying to talk to a woman, just add 2 things that you think have nothing to do with the topic you're discussing. That will get you closer to where she is, I promise. And women, when you're talking to a guy, just take the 2 things you think are most important, toss them out. He hadn't thought of either of them. I can almost guarantee it. My girlfriend's figured it out with me. She has. She loves me like I'm a dog. And that's true. I'm very canine. I am. I sit down, I'll fall right asleep. You put food in front of me, gone immediately. I don't like exercise unless there's a ball involved. How about that? And she recognized that. And she's like, I'm going to rub his belly occasionally and feed him, and he's going to do what I tell him to. And she's right. I do. It's true. It's true. But it's not the same way going the other direction. It's not. I'm a dog, she must be a cat, right? No, not even close. Men, if we're dogs, then women, they're like lasers. Just these intense concentrations of light and energy that are so complex and dynamic that they will change your life in ways you can't even imagine. Or destroy you completely. One of those 2 things. And have you ever seen a dog around a laser? It has no idea what's going on there. It doesn't. It's like, it'll follow that thing around all day long, won't it? It's like, I just want this laser to love me the way I love this laser. It looks so good in red. And I'm not saying, by the way, that men are dumb and women are smart. We're all dumb women. You're just more complicated about it. That's all. If I were going to sum it up quickly, I would say it like this. Women, you think about things more complexly. And guys, we will say stuff like complexly without even knowing if that's a real word. That's basically it. I said it into a mic. Y'all are like, that sounds official. You know? That's what it's like being a man sometimes. But she's helped me a ton. She was with me during the pandemic. That was great. She's in the health industry. She got her vaccination right away. I was a little hesitant. I was. I'm like, I don't know what's in it. She's like, but you eat food in America. And I'm like, that's a good point. She's like, is there anything you love that you don't know what's in it? I'm like, you got me. Store-bought French onion dip. Touché. I say that because the onions are French. But I don't know what's in it. I don't. It's on the side of the package. I've read the side of the package. I still don't know what's in it. Those words are so long. They are. I think one of them might have been hydroxychloroquine. I don't know. It might be the vaccine. I can't be certain. Probably not. Probably not. Because every time I eat it, I feel like I have long COVID for the whole weekend. So. But she showed me there's a lot of ways that I was well suited for the pandemic. I have this compulsion to comfort people, and I live in New York City, which is a terrible city to have that compulsion, because there's a ton of people in need of a lot of comfort in that city. Every time somebody sneezes, I have to say, bless you. I can't not do it. Think about that. Every time that mucus exits a human nose, I have to remind them that Jesus cares. That's a lot to carry around with you all the time. But not during a global airborne pandemic. Are you kidding me? You would sneeze, I'd be like, you know what you did. You know what you did. You know? It was so much easier just to judge people. I was excited. I enjoyed the masks. I did. Partly because the bottom half of my face is by far the most disappointing half of my face. I'm looking around this room tonight, folks. I'm not alone in here. I'm not going to point anybody out specifically, but there's a few of y'all. Just keep that mask in rotation, all right? Yeah. Do it for your friends. Give them a break from you. You're a lot. I wore the mask in the summer of 2020. I was part of a couple social justice marches, wore that mask. It was nice because it changed my vibe considerably. It did. This is the first time I've ever been part of one of those marches and not look like the enemy of the thing they were marching for. I walk out there with that mask, people are looking at me, they're like, oh, benevolent surgeon. We like this guy. He's an ally. I take that mask off, Confederate general is what I'm giving off. Yeah. Like hardcore Confederate, too. Like one day I stood still for a little too long and some college kids tried to topple me. It was a weird summer. It was a weird summer. But it was a good summer, too. It really was. Summer of 2020 was my favorite summer for weddings because I got invited to 4 weddings and I went to 0 weddings. It was the best. It was so nice. It was so nice. Because weddings baffle me. They do. The last wedding I went to was my cousin's wedding, and it was a celebration of her life. And I've known her whole life. I'm not sure we should have been celebrating that, to be honest. I think if we had done it properly, it could have been an intervention for her life. She just walks down that middle aisle in her white dress. We're like, we're glad you came. Have a seat. I think the only wedding I fully understood that I attended was one gay wedding I went to. Those 2 dudes were like, we're having appetizers, and then we're going to have a small ceremony, and then we're going to have a bigger meal while we watch the game. And I'm like, I want this to be my life every day. But every heterosexual wedding I've ever went to, I'm singing this song in my head. Who's going to ruin the other one's life first? It is. And not because it's doomed to happen. It's just that day is so vastly different for the man and the woman. You don't have to look any further than the clothing. The woman searches for months, sometimes years, thumbing through catalogs, consulting friends, scheduling fittings. And the guy just rents his clothes. There's no greater tribute to the absurdity of that day than for the man to say, look, I'm not nearly as handsome or successful as you want your friends and family to believe that I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rent a success costume from another man. And we'll see if we can pull this ruse off until we can get to the honeymoon. The dress, I don't even get the concept fully. The dress, women, you wear it once, you put it away, you never see it again, you call it the dress. If I have any article of clothing I refer to as the article of clothing, I wear it 3-4 times a week, easy. And I know I'll never fully understand it. I know I have to accept that society has told women that it's supposed to be this thing that tells a story of who she is and where she came from, and it's this portal to where she's going and how her life is supposed to turn out. And as a dude, we just have to dress just that much better than the caterers. That's it. That's why men have no power on their wedding day. You don't deserve it. Not unless you go back in the kitchen. You're like, hey, we need more shrimp. You know? You're like, is he our boss? I don't know. Maybe. He's wearing our uniform. He could be. The dress, the vows. The vows. Those are wild. Because we all know the words. We do, by rote memory. Last wedding I went to, I accidentally put my hand over my heart during the vows. We know the words. I'm an actor. If I know your lines, I'm judging your performance. I've been at some weddings where I'm like, this does not feel like he loves her at all. Can we get an understudy in there so she can have a decent day at least? We do. We know all the words, and they're all over the place. They really are. You know, like some of them I get, like for richer or for poorer. That's like, hey, we couldn't afford a prenup. Let's do a real quick one here at the altar. In sickness and in health, that's a tricky one because you think the sickness part is the hard part. If somebody gets sick, you stay with them, you're a hero. They'll do news stories. You play your cards right, you might meet Oprah. It's the health part that's tricky. You ever been with somebody who just suddenly got into vegan baking? That's a tough one. If you stay with that person, you're a martyr in my book. But the worst one of all of them, to have and to hold. That's the one. That's creepy. It's a creepy vow. If you don't believe me, if you're a single guy, try that as a pickup line at a bar. Just walk up to a woman and go, hey, I want to have you and hold you. It's not going to work out well at all. Best case scenario, that's a clingy guy without adequate heating. Worst case, that is an abduction. It is. I don't know. Maybe the fix is that we do something different, mix it up. Maybe, how about this? Each person brings one vow that nobody knows is coming. I think that would be fun. It would. And we don't know if the other person is going to agree to that vow. Yeah, now it's getting interesting, isn't it? And if they don't agree, they have to negotiate it right there at the altar. Maybe not romantic, but I'll tell you right now, we leave that wedding, we're going to know a lot better how that marriage is going to work out. Maybe what we should do is the opposite. Take away all the ceremony. Just have each person get up there at the altar and just say the craziest thing they're going to do over the course of their whole marriage. See if the other one's on board with it. And instead of I do, because that's a lot of certainty, maybe something more realistic, like, I get it. Like, do you take this man, despite the fact that for the rest of his life, he's going to know the height, weight, bench press, and 40 time of the top 5 NFL draft picks of that year? But he will sometimes forget where your children are. And she's like, I get it. That sounds exactly like him. It does. And do you take this woman, despite the fact that one morning she's going to wake up angry at you for something you did in her dream? And he's like, I get it. And like 17 other guys are like, I also get that. What's that about? I don't know. But those people get it. They should be together, right? And look, some people think I'm cynical about weddings. I'm not. I just don't understand. And I don't think I'm equipped to. I haven't been since I was a little kid. And I think that because I was recently with my buddy when he was announcing to all his nieces and nephews that he was getting married. And as soon as he did it, all the nieces stand up. They're like, I want to be a flower girl. I want to be a flower girl. Then the nephew stood up. He's like, I want to be a wolf. I think that kid gets it. I do. Is that on the table? Because I would also like to be a wolf. I don't know if we're taking volunteers. Why aren't there more wolves at weddings? Is anybody asking this question? Because I'm curious now. I'm curious. Because a little girl's like, I want to pretend to be a princess and throw flowers down so that a grown woman, who's also pretending to be a princess, doesn't have to step on the ground. And people are like, that's an amazing idea. We got to put that in a ceremony. That's going to be lovely. People going to talk about going home. Then a little boy's like, hey, I want to be a wolf. We're like, you stupid little boy, get a job. I've just been to so many weddings where people are like, that's my daughter. She's the flower girl. I just want to go to one wedding one time where somebody's like, that's my son. Which one? The wolf boy. Right? That's all I really want to come out of tonight is for some man to walk out of here and go, I'm going to get a pedicure. And some woman to walk out of here and go, we're having wolf children at our weddings. Because I make a lot of fun of these things, but the fact is, I think you got to have fun. You got to find things you love to do. You got to find people you love to do it with. That's the most important part. It really is. You know? Right? But I'm lucky. I have that person in my life. She's amazing. My girlfriend, she's great. I have this joke about our relationship, that we're in a 4-year relationship. We're only 3 years into it right now, but it's a fun joke. It's a fun joke. It's quick, it's got a twist. I love that joke. She hates that joke because we've been together for over a decade. She's like, why don't you update it? I'm like, because I can't have people getting disappointed that we're not married in the middle of that tiny joke. I can't do that. Because when you're together with somebody for that long, getting married's a lot like an iPhone update. You know, it should make everything more secure and more efficient, but in the back of our minds, we're like, this might break the phone. We don't understand how this technology works. And she's been married before, and it was disappointing. And she's like, you're doing that for me already, without us being married. I'm like, that feels harsh, but I'll take it. But I get it. Look, the only thing that she really has a beef with is she hates the term girlfriend. She's like, look, I'm a grown woman. I think that's a childish term. I don't like the term girlfriend. And I said, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to suggest we start calling each other lovers. And she's like, girlfriend it is. We'll do that instead. Because I don't even know how I would propose to her. I don't. I have bad knees. She's terrible at pop quizzes. It would not go well. If I showed her a $20,000 ring, she would be furious with me. She'd be like, we still have 4 Broadway shows I want to see. What are you doing? We've never been to Savannah. But she is. She's the one. I knew she was the one because we understand each other's dumbest parts. We do. She understands that all of the dumb things I do are going to be food involved. They are. I'm going to knock stuff over. I'm going to spill stuff. Sometimes I eat so fast I forget to breathe. She knows that when we go eat at a fancy place, that I'm never going to fully be able to tell the difference between garnish and a small salad, ever. Somebody just like me. She's watched me eat an entire sandwich, look down, and realize that I accidentally ate half the napkin also. She's accepted all of that stupidity. She has, and I appreciate that. I really do. And look, she does stuff that's stupid too. She does. And it's harder. It's harder for her, because when she does something stupid, it might end up on stage on a given night. And I'm going to give y'all a real quick example. We watch shows together. We have different schedules. We always watch recorded shows. She never knows how long they last, ever. She always asks me, how long's NCIS? It's an hour. How long's The Office? Half hour. Recently, she asked me this, how long is 60 Minutes? She's like, you can't. I'm like, I have to. That was too dumb not to share with a group of people watching a comedy show in a place where horses might live. Because the fact is, mathematically, there's enough people in this room that over the course of the next week, somebody in this room is going to do something monumentally stupid. You are. You know, not just like walk into a, so we've got some volunteers in the back. Yeah, not just like walk into a room and not realize why you're in there, stupid, but like walk into a room and be like, why am I not wearing pants? Stupid. And after you do that, your first thought's gonna be, I hope nobody saw that. I hope nobody videoed that. But your second thought's gonna be, but at least I know how long 60 Minutes lasts. Right? And that's gonna make you feel good about yourself. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Thanks, man.